welcome to another episode of BSN's A Long Story Short. Today, we are talking about cross-chain technology, the ability to transfer data and assets between competing or complementary blockchain networks. Cross-chain has been regarded as a key technology, particularly in the last half-decade, where scalability has become an issue for public chains like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and many private chains are now looking to be more interoperable. Today, we are joined by Chjango from Cosmos, Jeffrey from Bianjie.ai, John Wang from the Poly Network, and Jeremy from the Cardano Foundation. I think we should start today by letting the guests introduce themselves and a bit about their projects. So why don't we start with Chjango from Cosmos? Give us a little bit of insights, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chjango Unchained, and I'm an ecosystem developer at Cosmos. I previously was the VP of ecosystem development at Tendermint, which was the project behind Cosmos. I had been working on the Cosmos project since mid-2017, and my foray into cryptocurrency was actually through Bitcoin in 2014. And so now I'm here talking about interoperability, very excited about the innovations coming out of this ecosystem now, especially with DeFi, cross-chain, and decentralized web.
Yeah, and cross-chain is obviously a very important part of Cosmos's, mission, right? So maybe you could give a little bit of insight into that before we move on.
This was the project that kind of kicked off this narrative that we're going to have many different blockchains that are all going to need to be interoperable in some way in the future. And it was kind of the project that kicked off that narrative. And then soon different projects followed on and realized that this is in fact going to happen, because the narrative that was being pushed in 2016 or 2015 before all of the scaling debates was that all of this could just be hosted on one chain, which is Ethereum, which is supposed to be the application layer. And what we're learning now is that as we are hitting up on scalability limits, we're going to need to scale it up and out, which means that you either have to do horizontal scaling, like implementing layer 2s on top of the EVM, or you do, that was vertical scaling, or horizontal scaling with having many layer 1 chains talking to each other. And that was the sort of solution that Cosmos was betting on. And we're seeing that come to fruition now.
Awesome. Great. Jeremy, why don't you go up next?
Great. Thanks, Ben. My name is Jeremy Furster. I'm project manager at Cardano Foundation. So I oversee all of our third parties and partnerships within the Cardano ecosystem. Cross-chain technology and interoperability is a very large topic for Cardano. It's something that we've put a lot of thought into, especially with how in Cardano we have over 100 peer-reviewed academic research papers, which has laid out some, real industry research and studies onto how to proceed, in this environment.
Okay, perfect. John, why don't you go ahead next? Tell us about yourself and a little bit about the Poly Network.
Hey guys, this is John from the Poly Network. And the Poly Network is a project started on the 2019, and we are quite focusing building a cross-chain infrastructure. And currently, it's already have more than the 7 billion of the asset using the Poly Network to do the cross-chain. And we already supporting more than 10 public blockchains. And so welcome everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. And last, Jeffrey.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeffrey Hu from Bianjie, a company in China based in Shanghai, also high-tech companies in China. And we focused on cross-chain and also the infrastructures level of the blockchain industry. And we have many collaborations with the Tendermint team and also the Cosmos project in the past. And we will contribute more like cross-chain technologies and also our permission products in the future for the whole industry and also the BSN's infrastructures.
Okay, excellent. All right, why don't we start now by taking a little bit more deeper look at the actual technology and method of cross-chain, right? Because it's a little bit more complicated than people think. So I guess we could go back to Chjango then, and you could talk a little bit more about how exactly that Cosmos implements the cross-chain itself.
Yeah, we have something called IBC. It's called the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. And that was really the first exploration into how we could credibly do trustless chain-to-chain communication. And that's really the most decentralized cross-chain protocol out there right now. We have that in contrast with, how people are doing just sending coins into a multi-sig that is custodied by a smart contract on Ethereum. And so there's kind of this spectrum of decentralization and trustlessness that you would buy into when you're thinking about interoperability. And so on the most decentralized scale, that's where IBC would sit. And on the least decentralized scale, that's where the wrapped or custodied solutions would be, custody on-chain solutions would be. And so also on the most decentralized, there's also atomic swaps, but it's different from IBC. And so what IBC really is, it's just a chain agnostic protocol that allows any chain that plugs it in to be able to talk to another chain in the same language, basically. IBC, you could think of it as sort of like a data packet highway, kind of like TCP/IP that transfers, packets of data across this network to be able to talk to the other chain. And it basically unpacks the data that is in each packet, translates it into a language that the other chain understands once it's plugged in and is registered with the other chain. And then now you have a chain that is going to be interoperable with the other chain. And so if you extrapolate that to an entire network, you could imagine many different sovereign blockchains kind of talking to each other via IBC through this kind of distributed network. That's not anything like a centralized hub, for example, that's just extending to a bunch of different chains. What you have is most likely different heterogeneous chains talking to one another, that's connected to another, and then that's connected to another. And if you think about how this looks like from a ecosystem perspective, what you have is, for the Cosmos ecosystem specifically, you could have Akash blockchain, Sentinel blockchain, Iris blockchain talking to the Cosmos hub. And if there is a least path to resistance for one blockchain to talk to the other, it's going to take that path. Most likely, they're going to connect to the Cosmos hub if it makes sense, and to talk to another hub, to talk to another blockchain that is connected to the hub. And so, that's kind of on a high level how Cosmos does cross-chain.
I was going to go to Jeremy because I think Cardano wasn't created specifically to be a cross-chain network. Maybe it was created more in mind to compete with some of the main chains out there. But you could talk a little bit now how cross-chain is being integrated and used.
Yeah, well, I think cross-chain and interoperability is an interesting topic. And I think there is kind of an overt focus on the wrong problem, which is how do we connect blockchains together? Because that's assuming that all blockchains are storing the right information and right type of assets. So I like to take, metadata for a good example, and NFTs. And one thing that Cardano focuses on is having a lot of rich on-chain content and being able to view other information off-chain. So how would you pass this NFT that's created on Cardano and have that being shown up the exact same way on a different blockchain? What would that mean for legal implications and other issues? So that's a topic that I think is still needs some thought, and also too for interoperability with assets that can be combined within one transaction. So we are a multi-asset blockchain, meaning that you can send in one transaction multiple assets, and all assets that's created on a blockchain can communicate with one another. So I think that's something that is quite important. On the other hand, I do see a lot of values for blockchain interoperability with just transferring value back and forth. So Cardano as a UTXO blockchain, we're not very similar to others, so that's kind of make it difficult in the early stages. So we do look for similar blockchains to ourselves, such as the Nervos blockchain. So what's great about them is that, we have still like a level of tribalism almost within the blockchain industry, where you have a lot of core supporters for just one blockchain. But Nervos is very similar in terms that we're both UTXO and we both have smart contracts. So we have two really great teams that can share best practices with one another. I mean, at the end of the day, with interoperability and blockchains, this is kind of an open source ecosystem. So, we're all tackling similar problems and going about it in different ways. So we don't know what will be the, killer application to get mass adoption. And so, yeah, I think this is when that, is really helpful.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting that you brought up that Nervous, because I was thinking like from a cross chain, when you're looking at it from a development standpoint, are you looking for blockchains that have a lot of user demand, or are you looking for blockchains that you believe down the road will provide more benefits to the ecosystem? Like, how do you structure that decision making?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. I think number one is just how is the blockchain designed? It's not so easy just to say that Cardano can be connected to Binance Smart Chain. It's a question that's came up probably 5 times a day within our community. But to build those connection points is difficult. So the fact that Nervos is just very similar into the design of our blockchain makes that easier, as well as like the Ergo blockchain and other partners. And it's very specific problems that we're looking at solving in terms of security and scalability. So that's how we view it. I'm interested to hear from the others, like what are their decisions?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe this is a good one for John, because I've actually used his Poly Network bridge before. So maybe he could talk a little bit about how they implement this, and then what the decision making is when they design which networks they're going to support.
Yeah, so Poly Network actually is quite different with other cross-chain protocol. So currently, the most popular solution is mainly based on the homogeneous cross-chain. But for the Poly Network, we are quite focused on the heterogeneous cross-chain. So it means the Poly Network actually can integrate with all kind of the public blockchain with different architecture. So when we design this model, the purpose of us is we are thinking currently is most of the asset is already existing in the different blockchain. So the user want to actually to managing their asset, or even use this asset in different chains to attend the DeFi protocol or something others. So that's why we choose to using the heterogeneous cross-chain solution. Okay, so as you ask, how we to decide to choose to integrate the chains. So mostly we will to integrating the chains. It has the most the high quantity of the transaction, and also our community will to propose to us and asking us the chance the thinking we should to integrate at the high priority. And of course, it's lots of the different blockchains also is talking with us and see if they do have very high demand to integrate with other blockchain, we will to choose to integrate with them. Of course, for ourselves, we currently quite focused on the Ethereum layer 2 chains. So we are currently working with Arbitrum and the Polygon. And after that, after we integrated with them, when the user wanted to transfer the asset from the Ethereum to the layer 2, they also can use the Poly Network. Thanks.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we can get back to, I think, the Arbitrum things and more layer twos a little bit later on. But I would be curious to go to Jeffrey for your thoughts on this previous question.
Yeah. For our team, actually, we adapted the IBC with IBC particle in very early time because IBC back to questions, what's its advantage? I think I can also follow the Chjango's answers that it's a total permissionless and trustless. And also it can support heterogeneous blockchains because we can use IBC even in the enterprise scenarios. Like we can currently our team is also to support the connections, constant connections with fabric chains with other kinds of the public blockchains through the help of IBC. So that's another I think very helpful features based on the IBC particles. So, and it's IBC particles has another advantage because it makes no assumption to the network topologies because all the blockchains actually can connect freely to each other. Because when you look at some visualizers on the Cosmos ecosystem right now, because there are many blockchain networks that can connect each other, even to establish the circle that it can connect with each other, not just the hub and spoke form of the networks. So it's quite useful and quite freely for the networks that can be connected with each other. And we also adopted this and contribute the IBC particles in a very long time. So in the future, we also will developing this kind of cross-chain particles, basically at two directions, the application level and also the particle level. On the application level, we will support not just like some token transfer or data transfer between the blockchains. We will also support the NFT cross-chain transfer and also the service request and response service question across different chains. That's application level. We will extend these abilities on this level. And also on the particle level, we will also make some enhancements or customization for the IBC, which actually I have talked with Chjango early this morning. It is called the TERS IBC or maybe TIBC to make IBC more swift for different kinds of the blockchain that can quickly adapt the IBC particle for them to easy to use the IBC particle more easily. So that's what we are doing right now.
Okay, so you're actively contributing to the Cosmos development. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, why don't we move on, I guess, to the challenges? Because when you think of cross-chain, for most people, depending on their level of understanding of the technology, it seems like quite a simple thing, right? You have these assets, you just want to move one asset from this network to the other network. This would be quite easy in a lot of more basic internet technology. So what are some of the real challenges that we are seeing now and that are kind of holding it back from being, because obviously we talked about this as something in 2017, people started coming up with, and why is it still, what are some of the challenges that we are facing? So I think anyone can jump in and answer this question if they like, they feel confident.
I still think the challenge comes down to, usability. That's really always the kind of gaping chasm that separates really innovative technology from a market. Because, at the end of the day, you could be doing some fancy PBFT stuff with your consensus mechanism, but at the end of the day, the end user really doesn't care, because they just want to swap, right? This market is dominated by speculation. So really it's just, you're figuring out a more, complex way for them to do swapping in a decentralized way so that they don't have to go to an exchange. But, at the end of the day, the user still just wants to exchange something, it could be a domain. It could be a domain name. It could be value in the form of a token. It could be like a digital representation of art. And they really don't care. We've seen that they don't really care about the underlying technology as much as just, if as much as, preferring like an app that offers convenience to them. And so what we in the cryptocurrency industry is really battling is this usability battlefront with Web2 platforms and applications, because they've spoiled users, right? Users want things to be as seamless as using Instagram or logging with Google email, and we just don't offer that yet. And we're still just at least a decade away. I'm being conservative, but we're a long ways away from offering that kind of a user experience that could compete with Web 2 UX.
Okay, that's interesting. Are there any other challenges that you guys are seeing out there?
I would say what's interesting from the enterprise perspective is many enterprises, they definitely push the agenda of blockchain interoperability, because it would be great for them to just say, well, we can use any blockchain that exists. But what's hard is to go for standards on like specific data standards or industry standards for components. I get questions like, what is the definition of a smart contract? What is the definition of a digital signature? Or what is the industry standard for the wallet that I should be having? And with all the options that still exist today, I think we're still like hard to say, okay, well, every blockchain is going to use the same wallet type. So you have to have that, that level of flexibility when you're approaching interoperability.
Yeah, I think most people, because of how popular DeFi has come lately, they focus mainly on cross-chain as a way to get assets from one network to the other. But the enterprise side is also quite interesting from a cross-chain perspective for those reasons you added. So hopefully, Jeremy, you could add some more points onto that as we progress through this webinar. But yeah, maybe John, Jeffrey, were there any challenges that you guys are seeing?
I think I think also we do have some challenge from the technical side. So because we have integrated with the different chains, so we can see the different chain has a different architecture, and so when actually if we do want to integrate with the different chains, actually we need to make it security and also stable. So if the transaction is not that much, it's thousands or even the 10,000, I think that's okay. It's somehow it's still working stable. But we can say in the last half a year, it's already do have the 100,000 of the transaction even per day to do the cross chain. So we think it's quite a big volume, and so it's quite a big challenge to all the chains, the node. So we can see if the Ethereum is have some the issue, or even the BSC have some the node is not stable somehow, the user actually cannot accept why my transaction cannot swap. So they won't understanding this kind of the technical questions. So by our side, first thing is we need to it's quite in Ethereum is okay, because in the same country, but for us it's quite a different countries trading. So we cannot make sure they already have some agreement or they are in the same line. So for the technical side, we need to make sure this thing in the high transaction volume, it can always stable. And the second thing is for the different chains, the asset actually has a different standard. So for example, in no matter in the Ethereum, in the BSC or in some other chains, actually the USDT is a different standard. So it's not the same USDT, it's totally different. So for us, even some the USDT is actually be accounted in the centralized the book. And also, like, I think no matter for the stablecoin or the Ethereum or the Bitcoin, it's still the most popular asset for the user to do the cross-chain. So how we actually can dealing with this kind of asset to do the cross-chain, I think that is also the very big challenge in the future. Yeah.
I want to make some addition to all the previous discussion, because from the text back, because we can see, my idea is the challenge maybe many around the reliabilities, because we see right now the IBC particles and maybe Poly network and other cross-chain projects has already make these things happen in the industry and already in the production environment. But the one challenge, I think, maybe in the future is the reliabilities. Maybe we can increase all the securities, and also we'll do some like the monitoring during this cross-chain transfers, all the transactions, all the things between these chains. So we do lots of things like around testing and other things to increase this kind of the reliability. And outside of the tech stack, another challenge, maybe from our side, from my side, is that is non-related to the tech stack, but just a community about the misunderstanding about cross-chains, because lots of people think that like for the Cosmos Hub or maybe Ares Hub. So it's just think about that. Well, it's maybe another centralized cross-chain single point for handle all the cross-chain data packs. But actually, it is no. And maybe another misunderstanding is about that IBC particle could only handle the token transfer, and all the misunderstanding about that. So another challenge for us, maybe we will advocate more about this and like put more promotion for the whole community to get them to know about. Well, actually, it's not. It's about all the message, all the data can be cross-chain transferred. Yeah, that's another challenge.
Right. It sounds like your challenge is more from an adoption standpoint than a consumer-facing, getting them to use it standpoint. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it's good that we have these different perspectives. Why don't we talk a little bit about risk and trust, right? Because these two things somewhat related. There's something very simple and elegant about the way Bitcoin works. And then obviously Ethereum is not as complicated, but when you start mixing all these different bridges and chains together, talking together, and using these different assets, you kind of open yourself up to more possible exploits, more attack vectors, more points of failure, right? So how do you kind of approach this from a risk standpoint? And then how do you get people to really trust, the solutions that you're building to the point where they feel confident, putting millions or billions of dollars of assets into them, right? The stakes are quite high in our industry. So how do you address this?
I liked Vitalik's response to this question, because no one can be so confident that their protocol is just bug-free and exploit proof that they can guarantee anyone from losing money. And so Vitalik says that you should let them break it while the market is still, while your network is still, several millions of dollars, and let them figure out all of the bugs before your market becomes, in the trillions of dollars scale. So, people might lose a lot of money, but, that's all for the greater good.
Yeah, it's a very raw and honest
for the
approach.
Future.
Right. Yeah. I think we're no strangers to losing money in this industry, but that's something that we hope to improve on. Any other perspectives on this?
I think trust. I think when you talk about trust, I think we can get some ideas also from the previous narrative of the blockchains. You don't trust, right? Don't trust, but verify. So I think IBC particle also follow these ideas. you don't trust any third parties during this cross-chain transfer. So when we talk about like the engineering, implementation and design, so yeah, no one can to ensure that that's totally bug-free and no maybe some things will happen during running. But on the particle design and on the particle level, we can assure that we don't introduce any kind of the third party. Any kinds of the single point with trust, or maybe a multi-signature trust party, a small group trust, but just pass this kind of the proof, pass to the another chain and verified independently by another chain. So that's another kind of trust. So we design this particle and show, well, it's open source to the everybody involved in this cross-chain particle, so everybody can verify. This design is not, we don't need to trust anyone but the particle, but the mathematics itself. So that's, I think, the particle level, we can trust this kind of things.
Right, exactly. Jeremy or John, do you have anything? All right, if not, we can move on. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, just when it comes to, cross-chain interoperability, eventually you need to have value being achieved on a specific blockchain. So I kind of question in general, like what are the core values of cross-chain compatibility? And whenever you're implementing the system, you need to really focus on really knowing that value and why you want to do this. I mean, it's not just for the sake of being interoperable, because it's true. You have different teams managing different blockchains. So it is a concern if you are putting your assets onto another protocol and there is that risk of something, something breaks or there is a hack and your funds are taken away, because it is completely outside of, your system. I mean, there are a lot of answers to how to solve that problem with, we look at like a lot of side chains to solve this, but I think we're still kind of early in figuring this out. But I'm interested in what Chjango has to say about this, because Cosmos is really advanced. I think probably one of maybe the most advanced in our industry for cross-chain problems and solutions.
Yeah, the world of cross-chain is just about to get even more complicated, because what's coming down the pipeline is a concept. It's something called staking derivatives. And what we're building towards is this idea that you could create a derivative atom, basically, right? So because the atom is the underlying staking token for the Cosmos hub, its role is really to provide security. And so we don't want that token to be highly liquid. And, in a cross-chain world, that's kind of inevitable. And so what you want to do in lieu of to disincentivize people from trading a bunch of atom and making the network more insecure and privy to attack, is that you would create a one-to-one pegged token to the atom that acts as who functions as like a liquid version of that. And so once we have that, you're going to be able to trade that all over across the ecosystem. And that is going to open up the doors to a lot of, it might open the doors to attacks potentially. But the great thing about sovereign chains and each chain kind of providing its own security is that once a token gets onto that chain, then it's kind of secured by that chain. And so if it were ever to be corrupted, it kind of can't blow over outside of just that chain. And so, while maybe that chain security will just implode on itself and maybe recover, it won't be pathological to the rest of the connected ecosystem. And that's what's good about it. And that's what we're going to need. And so, if we look at projects like ETH2 or Polkadot, they do provide this sort of shared security infrastructure. But if any single chain or parachain or sharded environment kind of implodes on itself, it is going to be detrimental to the rest of that entire connected ecosystem. And that's the big difference between Cosmos and those other ways of doing cross-chain.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I was getting at earlier by the risk when you have all these connected protocols, and we've seen it a little bit in DeFi where like lending protocols, for example, the more assets that are connected, then the higher the risk goes. So that's something that I guess we're looking at. And I guess that leads to the next question. You brought up the pipeline, what's coming next? I guess over the next year or 2 years, right? We're seeing all these layer twos. We're seeing the Polygons and the Arbitrums and the Solanas and the BSCs and, everything that goes with it, right? And it seems like we're expanding faster than we can bridge, right? It's at some point when users are on centralized exchanges and you're withdrawing your assets and which network you pull down a list and, suddenly you have 8 or 9. And we just even saw USDC. I think they listed on like 12 different networks, in the last week, right? How do we keep up, right? How do we keep pace with the, the scale that we're expanding all these different networks in a secure way?
I honestly think this opens the doorway to insurance. If we're not going to stop in DeFi at just trading and lending. We're going to open up securities. Insurance, annuities, and all of these different financial vehicles. And so I think we're heading in that direction and really fast.
Okay. Anyone else, their view on this? I think maybe John from the Poly Network, you have this bridge. I think this is it's a really good question for you. How do you keep linking, all these networks?
Okay, I think the more and more assets actually deploy in the different chains, I think it's gonna be the common things in the future. So the same as the country and the country need to do the trading. So I think of course, like most of the trading and the financial activities is gonna be happen in the Ethereum. This thing I still believe, like especially in the next 3 or 5 years. But it's not means it won't have any other the DeFi thing happened in other blockchains. I think it's gonna be very common things because when the countries do have more than 60 projects currently using the Poly network as the infrastructure, and we can see last year the project coming to us is looking for they deploy the token contract in Ethereum and planning to migrate to do the cross-chain to other chains. But recently we can see more and more projects they deploy the token contract directly at the first date in different chains. Then now we can see it's not just the token deployed in the different chains. It's already have lots of the swap, the borrow and lending and the auto and the yield farming, this protocol, they already support the different chains at the first days. So I think it's gonna be hit even in the middle term, but I don't know long term. But based on the history, it's gonna have the different countries, just like the big country and the small country. So that's how I think it.
Yeah, there's so much user innovation that you then have to think about the governance of your own protocol, right? I think let's say when Bitcoin white paper came out, there was no section about cross-chain communication in DeFi, right? So these type of innovations, I think, is really fun to watch and see the unintended opportunities that does exist from trying to catch up to a world of bridging assets together in integrating liquidity across markets. It's definitely a fun thing to look at, to see the explosion here for activity. And it's also good for apples to apples comparisons for different blockchains, and this could lead to some more consolidation for solving industry problems, instead of spending time focusing on building out the umpteenth blockchain, right? Because now it's like, well, if I want to add another value here, you kind of see like it gets harder to build something new when everything's becoming more and more integrated.
Right. That's good. Jeffrey, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, my opinion would be on some high value perspective, because you mentioned about our side chains and also new chains that emerged in the past several years. And my idea is that question actually will grow like side by side with the blockchains, because in the past several years ago, question is mainly about the token transfer, because at that time the token is maybe the main use cases for all the token transfers, and just within inside the chain or between the chains. So some people may argue that the question may be a pseudo concept for the use cases, because maybe we just finish all the things on the Ethereum and that's all. So, but when the DeFi boomed last year, so we see that our DeFi protocols actually have this kind of needs for their cross chains. So I think as the blockchains have many more abilities and all the use cases in the future, I think cross chain will have more use cases alongside with the blockchain itself. So that's my takeaways for that.
Okay. Let's broaden the scope real quick. I mean, we talked about 1 to 2 years out. I know that Chjango earlier, she mentioned 10 years, right? So if we imagine 10 years into the future, what is this blockchain landscape? What is it going to look like? Will there be, like there is now, dozens or more protocols that are all communicating together and assets are switching between it? Will there be like a few dominant technologies that everyone's using for the most part? How do you see this playing out?
Honestly, the Cosmos vision has always been that there's just going to be hundreds and maybe hundreds of thousands of chains. But what we see with human tendencies is that we like, social signaling and network effects, which is the reason why, after the internet has matured to where it is today, we have maybe 4 or 5 major platforms that everybody is just on. And so we have kind of passed the Cambrian explosion stage of, people just deploying a bunch of different projects. And I think in the next few years, we're going to start seeing consolidation and standardization. So as soon as things standardize, people are going to follow whatever standard that creates like a Schelling point for developers and projects that find a viable business model. And that Schelling point is kind of around the EVM. And so right now, everyone is building EVM compatibility. It may or may not end up there may not be an economy that just solely operates on ETH1, but all around like EVM blockchains. So yeah, we're going to see smart contracts, specifically smart contracts with EVM compatibility, and they're just going to be deployed on different chains that have that compatibility, and we'll have blockchain standards and basically UIs that most people are going to be on. And so even though there's going to be, let's say, maybe 10 to 15 big blockchains just kind of like running all of the major functionality decentralized underneath the UI, all of the users are going to be kind of centralized on a few key user interfaces or platforms.
And And you see this being something that's embedded, like kind of like you said, like a Web 2.0, where it's just kind of ubiquitous throughout the internet, or will it still be us, our niche circle, chasing after our cryptocurrency gains together?
I think that circle will definitely grow, and it will become ubiquitous across the global market as the whole like blockchain technology aspect of it gets abstracted so far away from the user that they only see like an interface.
Right.
But
right.
The hope with the migration from Web 2 to Web 3 is that it won't matter at that point, because we're now like operating on fundamentally decentralized infrastructure. And so we hopefully enter into that, idealistic utopia where we won't run into the same issues that we are currently running into in Web 2.
Jeffrey, do you agree on that one?
Yeah. Yes, I believe that there will be many chains. I think there will be no single one chain to rule them all. I think it will be less likely to happen that. But I think still there will be many chains, especially some heterogeneous chains will exist in a very long time in the futures for the blockchains. I think there will be some many more like cross-chain particles also running in the future to solve different problems to connecting this kind of the blockchains. So I think just because this kind of blockchains and particles will solve their own problems, just like the concept. I think it is raised by the Cosmos project also. Like years ago, like it is application specific blockchains, because it solve different kinds of the problems and the applications by itself. So maybe the question will also have some similar functions in the future for connecting different things. And that's my idea.
10 years from now, how do things look? It's a good question, right? I think you have to also know that in 10 years, there will be a few different scaling features which should be complete, which will increase, the ability on one, protocol to have a much greater level of throughput than we have today. And I think that's something to be, cognizant about. But also just the number of programming languages that can be, interact with the blockchain is also going to increase at probably the same pace. Maybe every single major programming language will be able to use to write a blockchain application. So we're probably looking at just the level of blockchain activity that we see today, where we have around maybe 200,000 developers going to 36 million developers. So what level of on-chain activity do you think we'll have in 10 years from now? I think will be massive compared to what we have today. So what does that mean for cross-chain communication? For any cryptocurrency, that movement should be quite seamless. So if I'm holding Bitcoin, I can move this to any network of my choosing to participate in those DeFi platforms, or looking for the fastest payment movement. For crypto asset management now, so if you're looking at tokenized assets, or we're looking more onto what will NFTs look like, or what will happen for verified documents or digital identity solutions. I don't think this is going to be an area where you're going to see a lot of movements from chain to chain. Probably for on the dApp side of it, they will look for the best home for their use case. But because there's still a lot of just those data standards, will they still be made? Will they be implemented yet or not? We don't know. But representing information on chain, I don't think is going to be shared equally as you will just do financial value.
Interesting. And if everything is standardized and everything is, transparent and can interact with each other, how are these protocols going to, collect and make their ecosystem sticky, right? To the point where they still have, a lot of value. Because right now what we're seeing a lot is it is very competitive, and certain ecosystems are trying to compete quite heavily with other ecosystems to the point where cross-chain might actually not be something that they're actively promoting, right? So how do we change this narrative, and how do you see this playing out?
And again, it comes just to the total growth of activity, right? Is where I do think you still will need cross-chain. Like, let's take Compound for a really good example. The yield on Compound is only as much as people are wanting to borrow. It doesn't matter how much you want to, lend out, right, as collateral. So there's still going to be pockets of liquidity and pockets of users, but this is a general problem, I think. And then I know the Cardano answer to that, right, for how we look to aim to solve this, but it might be different from other blockchains, how they choose to solve it, right? But you can look at it just as you do e-commerce platforms today. E-commerce platforms, they focus on their user engagement and retaining their users over time. So your individual user value, how many transactions are you doing on a daily basis or in a month? What type of transactions are you doing? So the platforms that can offer a variety of solutions that are entertaining and attractive for the users are the ones that I think will have that stickiness.
The idea behind IBC is that it doesn't really bet on the persistence of any single blockchain, and that it could just be used for any chain in the future. And so while it's hard to say which protocol is going to be ultimately used and persisted throughout the decades, the whole purpose of IBC is that will, and hopefully it becomes as sticky as TCP/IP was, because it's still used today. And so that's the sort of idea behind a chain agnostic protocol that does do cross chain for anything now and into the future.
Great. We're getting to the end of the hour here, so I was wondering if there is anything, maybe one last topic we can touch on, because Jeremy, Cardano is obviously playing an important role in the enterprise side of things. We've talked a lot today about the DeFi side and connecting different assets, right? But how do we, include the enterprise world? How do we include even things like CBDCs and stuff like that within our cross-chain ecosystems? Is that something that you guys are working on, or is it kind of segregated now at this point?
I mean, it's in the core DNA, right? Regulated market acceptance of public blockchain infrastructure is the core reason that we're here in the industry. So if this has to come down to, the connective tissues to the blockchain, are you secure? Do you have security audits to prove that? Do you have forensic analysis tools to show that as well? How are you tracking asset movements? What is the the KYC feature attack to each user? Are there different liquidity pools for this? So do you have a true DeFi solution, and do you have the KYC friendly DeFi solutions for interbank liquidity pools? So it's, when I look at blockchains, I kind of look at it into where, well, what's the purpose? Are you peer to peer, or are you B2B? And if you're on a B2B side of a play, then your framework is a bit different. You serve kind of a different purpose, but I think it's all for the greater good, right, of the industry.
And at Cosmos, are you guys involved in any part of that side as well, about maybe trying to bring more data solutions to the cross chain side of things, or are you mostly focused on the DeFi aspect?
Mostly focused on DeFi at the moment, but Jeffrey on the IrisNet side is they're actually building out enterprise solutions. We just talked about that in our podcast earlier.
Jeffrey, do you want to go into detail on that?
Yes, and enterprise side, actually we build several things on the infrastructure level, on the tool level, on the application level, so we can support this kind of enterprise applications for the futures. Like the interchain service, we can connect all the current enterprise applications and systems for them to interact and quickly integrate with the blockchain world. And we can have this like it's NFT things to support this enterprise data that can be tracked and can be used on the blockchains. So that's all the things, maybe all the things we are trying to do right now. And we also integrate like the privacy computing and some data sharing for the different scenarios for this kind of the applications that can really use the blockchain as the a basic platform or infrastructure for their system can interact with each other, and especially with the cross-chain. Because right now, when you look at the enterprise level and the environment, lots of enterprise consortium or even private blockchains they're running in different places for the different system and companies. But this system actually can be collaborating with each other, or maybe when they need that this data can be sharing between this kind of private chains by the help of the cross-chain protocol. So that's maybe the one thing we want to try to prevent in the Web 2. Yeah, because you can see that many isolated islands in the Web 2 world right now. But we definitely want to try to prevent this thing in the Web 3 world. We don't want to see other isolated blockchains in the enterprise and also in the futures. So cross-chain will helping to solve this kind of the problems both in the crypto world and also the enterprise world.
Yes.
I did fail to mention this earlier. That's worth mentioning now that I think about it. Is Cosmos Cash is one of those projects that Tendermint team is working on to build like a fiat on-ramp in the European Union. So they're working with EU central banks to be able to build that and kind of create that fiat gateway for the Cosmos ecosystem. So that's something that's coming down the pipeline, given, all things are a go on the regulation side, which is a whole beast on its own, but
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's an interesting picture that you all paint of the future. And like you said, I think if we focus on things like usability and what the purpose of the blockchain is used for, then hopefully in 10 years, we will have this world where assets and smart contracts are able to interact seamlessly between the different networks, and we can build some really cool things. So I want to thank everyone for coming on today. It's been an enjoyable conversation, and I think there's a lot of different topics that we could pick your brains on in the future. So hopefully everyone will stay in touch, and thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.